Hi, I'm Adriana Nickel, and I will be presenting a community mapping and photo story of Fort Morgan, Colorado. So a little bit about Fort Morgan's history. It was indeed a fort in 1860s during the Civil War era. It protected settlers and mail routes, and its proximity to the South Platte River prompted its growth and main economies in agriculture. One such agricultural endeavor was the Great Western Sugar Beet Factory, which was built in 1906 after a bunch of farmers promised to grow all the beets, and they did, so they built the factory. And then the iconic silos were put up in the 1940s. The sugar beet did triple the sugar beet factory, tripled the population of Fort Morgan between 1900 and 1910. And the sugar beet factory has been the center of some controversy recently. In May 2018, the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment fined Great Western $2 million for their air and water pollution. Another large industry based on the ag in our community is beef. The American Beef Plackers plant opened in 1966. That's the one here in the top picture. And then Cargill purchased it in the late 1980s. Cargill is an international corporation that runs food production. Cargill is Fort Morgan's largest employer. They employ about 34% of our working age residents, and that's 4 times as much as the next largest employer, our school district. All of this industry surrounding ag brought in lots of waves of immigrants and lots of diverse groups, most recently Puerto Ricans and East African refugees. A little bit about our census data and the growth of diversity over the last, 3 or 4 decades. You can see the Hispanic population doubling every decade, every census. And then there was a little dip in foreign-born population in the 2000s, and that was due to a ripple effect when the beef plant in Greeley was raided by ICE. We had some families in Fort Morgan who were scared that would also happen here, so they chose to leave. A little bit of controversy or problems for our Somalian community. About 140 of them were fired when they staged a walkout due to insufficient prayer breaks. Cargill has decided to settle out of court with these employees, and they're paying them $1.5 million for they're paying them $1 million instead of going to court. And more evidence of assimilation, I guess, being difficult for our Muslim community is that they feel that longtime Morgan County residents refuse to sell them land and property because they'd like to build a mosque, but they believe that longtime community members will not sell to them for that reason. I decided to interview Dolores Preseda. She's our migrant family liaison from BOCES, and she's also works closely with Fort Morgan Cultures United for Progress. And she's kind of a pillar in our community for reaching out to our migrant families. And I asked her, what are some issues that you believe affect, our communities within Fort Morgan? And she said that people don't really understand all the different cultures. They think Africans are all Somalians, Spanish speakers are all Mexicans. But she said, we have different cultures here, and if we could just get to know each other and understand that everybody has skills they can bring to the table, then she feels that would help. I asked her what's a way that Fort Morgan could be more inclusive. She says it's very simple. Translate the word welcome into our students' languages and post that in our schools, and that would instantly make them feel more comfortable, and I liked that idea. Dolores is just one support in our community. We have a lot more. I'll get to that in a second, but I wanted to just quickly show that Fort Morgan is 80 miles northeast of Denver along the I-76 corridor, and our county is Morgan County. It's a 36 by 36 foot square, and Fort Morgan's right in the middle of it. Here is Fort Morgan. Our city limits are indicated by these red lines, You can see that we're pretty waterlocked. So the South Platte River is north of us. There's lots of ditches around our community. So that makes it difficult to grow physically. And we're also just very landlocked by a lot of farms. And farmers aren't necessarily willing to sell. So a little bit about Fort Morgan High School. It's the red dot. We are at 74% free and reduced lunch, 36% ELL, 64% Latino, 5% African. That's some demographics. We are comparable to Commerce City. So people don't really think of a rural town having comparable demographics to some urban communities, but we do. What else? Oh, some health places in town. The hospital is right across from the high school. We have Salud, that's another health clinic, and Banner also hosts a small health clinic next to Salud. We have one building for kindergarten, Head Start, and preschool. We have 4 elementary schools, one being Green Acres, which is kind of a neighbor to our high school, so we do have some partnerships with Green Acres. The middle school is, you can see, on the other end of town. It's about 2 years old now, and this was the only place to build it, really. And I guess what's bad about its location is you can see it's not very accessible to most of the community's kids unless they get a ride or ride the bus. The pink line represents the railroad tracks, and I do think there's a stigma on the south side of our town, south of the railroad tracks, and I think that's due to the fact that Cargill is located here, south of the tracks, and it used to have a bad history of odor pollution, so a lot of the home values in this neighborhood went down because of that. You will not see very high socioeconomic status residents living south of the tracks. Recreation facilities, we have 2 gyms, where it's about $40 to $60 per month for memberships, nice equipment, it's updated. And then in the middle of town, we do have a recreation center. It's in the old Armory building, and it's much more affordable, but small and not very updated equipment. We have 4 service support type locations, the BOCES. This one is Rising Up, It's owned by the Methodist Church, and it's a homeless shelter, food bank. Along Main Street, we have it's called the Community Center, and it's a product of an organization that's trying to bridge cultures in our community. And then we have the Sarah House, which is a domestic violence advocacy center, and it's they work closely with our judicial branch. So I chose to organize my curricular units using the Colorado Career Clusters because teachers are always wondering how to bring relevancy into their classes, and I thought this would be a good way to show them how to do that. So the first career cluster is around hospitality, human services, and education. We do have Centennial Mental Health, and there are a lot of great professionals that work here and are willing to share what they do and describe what they do and advocate for people with mental health issues. We also are lucky to have Morgan Community College. A lot of great programming comes out of this college, and they work very closely with our high school. And we have about 8 hotels in Fort Morgan. This image here is from a more high-end hunting, clay shooting, event center, resort place. But I thought this would be a good place for our catering class to visit with. Along the area of hospitality, I thought it would be awesome for some business students to explore the history of Hispanic businesses in our community, as well as the Somalian businesses in our community, or the East African businesses. Here's a restaurant. This is the Halal Market, and there are 8 to 10 little markets, kind of like this one that you see, stores in the market, kind of like this one you see here, whose owners are and son are praying during prayer time. And in the evening, you can go in and you'll hear all these men playing dominoes and dice games, and It's a very lively center for our African community. The next career cluster is business, marketing, and public administration. I thought that the city hall would be a good place for like civics, different social studies classes, American government to go visit with like our city clerk or our city attorney or our city manager and see how, just learn about governance. We do have some big international businesses in Fort Morgan. This picture on the left of all these ingredients is taken by the CEO of Smirks, and they travel all over the world buying and selling unique ingredients. So that would be a pretty cool model to learn about from a business class standpoint. Viero has a corporate center here. They're a cell phone company. And then finally, the banks for the area of finance and business. We have 9 banks in Fort Morgan. Farmers State Bank is one of the oldest. Ag, natural resources, and energy. I kind of already talked about the ranching a little bit, the beets. We do have a lot of large-scale dairies in Fort Morgan. This one is a Wildcat, and they do have some good programming with younger kids, but I think it would be cool for older kids to go and explore the business models and some of the finer details. We also have a great relationship with Colorado State University and their extension office program. So we do have an extension office in Morgan County. They run our 4-H. Residents can call in and ask like horticulture questions and agronomy questions. So I think this would be great for some science classes to do a project of some sort with our Morgan County or our CSU extension office. Also along the lines with energy in this career cluster, north of Fort Morgan, there is a huge $1 billion wind farm. I think that would be great for an environmental sciences class to visit. We have Pawnee Power Plant. It's one of the last coal-fueled plants in Colorado because Xcel Energy is moving to renewable resources by 2026. That's their goal. And finally, Morgan County Rural Electric Association. They are trying to kind of grow their own workforce, so they have a lot of really amazing youth programs that students could look into. The next career cluster is STEM, Arts, Design, Information Technology. So through MCC, Morgan Community College, we do have the Center for Arts and Community Enrichment, and they come out with an annual schedule of art gallery shows, theater troupes they bring to town, comedians, authors, musicians. They offer a great programming every year. We have the School for the Performing Arts. It does cost to go here, so it might not be as accessible to some of our lower, socioeconomic students. However, they do offer a couple scholarships. Journalism falls into this career cluster, so the Fort Morgan Times would be a great resource, meeting with their writers and editors. And information technology, I'm not sure how to say this, but ALO just moved into Fort Morgan, and they are a fiber optics company. So just learning about, why they chose Fort Morgan for a corporate center, and their growth has been enormous over the last few years. So hearing about that. Next, we have skilled trades and technical sciences. The manufacturing companies in Fort Morgan are really trying again to grow their own workforce and keep people here and reach kids when they're, younger to bring them into the industry. So I think this would be a great, I think these companies and, in the steel industry, this is plumbing parts, brass plumbing parts. I think these would be great for industrial tech teachers, a geometry teacher, because I've seen the programming that they do to make all these parts, and it's really interesting. All the technology from the computers to the machines. And transportation, we do have a railroad depot in Fort Morgan. And health, science, criminal justice, and public safety. We have the police station, the fire department, the sheriff's office offers a cadets program. We have about 3 eye doctors, 4 dentists in town. And Sarah, I put this kind of with the criminal justice and public safety. That's the domestic violence advocacy. And I hope this is only the